Hello guys, what's going on? Welcome to Atrocious Gameplay. Today we're going to be doing a deck profile video. This is a deck that I took to my local expanded league cup just this past weekend. This is Aggro. This is the list that I played. It's a kind of an interesting list. I'm going to kind of go by round of how it actually went before I kind of go into the specifics of why I played certain cards over others, maybe some changes that I would make. Just to kind of give you guys kind of an idea of what the meta was like in my area. So I will say the challenge before and also the League Cup the day before, there was a heavy influence of Guardian. So I just want to mention that before I start mentioning the rounds, because I actually dodged all the Guardians in this expanded cup. So round one, I played a mirror match. I played Aggro, me versus a guy who's real nice. I did not get to super growth within the first two turns, and I didn't see a Bridget either, so that was very interesting. I just had no draw support whatsoever. I didn't see a Stevens Resolve, which is weird because that is literally quick math 12 out of the 60 cards in my deck. I don't even think I had searching options either to try to get Pokemon, whether that was the Pokemon fan club. Obviously I didn't have Stevens Resolve. I said no Bridget, no Rowlet, so that was just not super great. But I noticed that he had the Vileplume GX, and that really helped him in the matchup because he was just swinging ahead at my Burning Shadows Vileplumes that I eventually got going. Now nobody in the weeks that I prepared for this in my local area was playing Aggro, so this was kind of a complete surprise to me to see this person. But that will kind of factor in when we talk about stuff later. But I did not win that game. I pretty much got donked. I got nothing going, and he had all of it going the entire time. Second round, I played Archies, and I literally put the Oddish down as the active. I'm like, okay. In my hand, I have 2 power plants, 3 energies, and a Cynthia and Caitlyn. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna Cynthia and Caitlyn. And so I put out my 6 prizes. It's my turn. I'm going first. I draw another energy. I'm like, okay, this is not good. So I Cynthia and Caitlyn away one of the energies. Stick down power plant. I obviously can't grab anything. And out come a bunch of cards that I didn't need. Pokemon Center Lady was one of them. Pokegear was... No, I'm sorry. Pokegear was not one. Pidgeotto was one. And then also a Vileplume Irritating Pollen. So I literally could not do anything. I did my Cynthia Caitlyn and I said pass. And the Mewtwo player proceeded to get the turn 1 Archies. Got all the energy he needed, and it absolutely wiped out my Oddish. So I did not win game 2 either. That was kind of pretty much bonkers. But round 3, I ended up facing Pikarom. I faced my good friend Kyle Pikarom. And this was a very interesting matchup. I actually got to turn 1 Bridget, which was really cool. And I also got to turn 1 Super Growth, which was very nice. But in that match, he got Jolteon out very quickly. I started out just like you pretty much always do with the Vileplume Irritating Pollen, getting that out first. But this one right here, it was going up a full all-out Jolteon already. So it was very interesting. I did actually, through some scheming, Kyle had decided to move damage around, not necessarily move damage, but to spread damage around for just the 110 KOs on both of my Vileplumes that I had going on. And so that got me enough time to eventually scoop this up with another one set on the field over there, and I had a Aggro with two energies already attached to it, and it went in for the KO. And then I was just so far ahead at that point that there was nothing that my friend Kyle could do, so I did get the win there. That was awesome. Round 4, I got a redemption against Archies. I played against my friend Ryan Schultz. Very cool guy, love him. We were playing Archies, and I had a normal start in the game. I started out with Aggro, and I actually from my hand also had an Oddish and a Pidgey. But in my hand, I had pretty much all. I think I had a Power Plant. I used a Pokegear in that turn, but I didn't get the Bridget. I didn't get the Bridget in that turn. I ended up getting a Steven's Resolve. And I battled this with myself. I was like, okay, do I want to do a Super Growth to get this Vileplume over here, the Irritating Pollen Vileplume, or do I actually want to do Steven's Resolve first to get some of these other pieces that I need in order to do well in the following turns? And so I decided to Stevens. I knew I wasn't going to be going for Top Cut or anything like that at that point, so I was like, I think I'll try this method, and it ended up working in the beginning. I was able to build up this Vileplume right here eventually and get it going for some knockouts, and I was in a pretty good position. He had used up all of his energy retrievals. He had been able to Archies twice though, so that was the problem. He was able to Archies for the Blastoise on the turn 1 before I could even do anything, so nothing I can control about that. But then the drawback of not getting the Irritating Pollen Vileplume, he was able to very easily get the Kingdra set up to be able to attack these Pokemon. So thankfully, I was able to maneuver around it, and I was actually planning on possibly going for a deck out. He was very, very low on cards. I think he had about 7 cards left in his deck. And obviously, as you can tell from my PCL, Pokemon Center Lady, and the Life Forest, I have a very healing-oriented deck. I had just bounced his Swell, so I was doing pretty well in the Stadium battle. And so, but I actually decided not to go for the healing. I decided instead of with the Mewtwo active against my Aggro I had already used the GX, so I didn't need to use that there. But with the Calming Hurricane attack to heal 30 because I had some damage counters on me, I decided to go with the Lysander instead and go against the Blastoise, which I felt like was my biggest threat per se, but turning out that he didn't actually have any more energies left in the deck or in the or any more energy retrievals. I was honestly much better off skipping the Lysander and just going with the PCL lady, attacking that Mewtwo and putting him kind of on a clock, because I was at 3 prizes left. He was at 2 prizes left, I believe, and I was committing to the Aggro. It was the only thing on the field. So it's kind of a shame there that didn't end up working out, but you know what? You live and you learn. This is a new deck that I picked up, by the way. So round 5, I played against Honchkrow Stall, and that was honestly a very, very interesting matchup. I played against James Langley, a guy from my state. I don't think he's necessarily local, about an hour away, but really cool guy. He was playing Honchkrow Stall, and I had never seen this deck before. I didn't really know what it did, the different pieces of the deck. So I was just kind of on a guessing game, and I ended up going in. I had to start Shuckle, so I decided to go in with Shuckle because he started with the Murkrow, and I knew Honchkrow was kind of I thought that Wrap GX would be a pretty interesting idea onto the Honchkrow, as well as the Triple Poison, especially while the Murkrow was still a Murkrow. And so I was able to knock out the Murkrow very interestingly with the Shuckle eventually, and it was interesting because he also played the Regirocks that did not allow Guzma, Lysander, cards like that to gust up and such, at least supporter-wise. And so that was a free pivoter for him, and at one point he had gotten all these energies to 1 on the bench, and I wasn't sure what he was going to be able to do. And then all of a sudden he Ninja Boyed into a Pyroar, slapped a slapped a rainbow energy on it, and then discarded it to knock out my Shuckle because of the weakness. It usually does 90, but with weakness, it does 180, which is 10 more than what Shuckle has. So that was a complete surprise. That was very interesting to learn. But I ended up getting ahead through the Burning Shadow Vileplume. This one was actually really, really important. And also the Aggro. I did the Aggro a little bit too. But just constantly just trying to throw another attack at him and try to stall him out. He's not doing a lot of damage to the Aggro, because I noticed after I fobbed away his rainbow energy and also his DCE that he wasn't getting a lot of energies from the deck that he was trying to pull from, so he wasn't doing a lot of damage either. So I was able to do things like AZ to try to get around the damage that he was throwing down and constantly get more Vileplumes, whichever one I thought was the best. But there came to be a point where all of a sudden I had to sacrifice the item lock Vileplume. It was just so that I could get this Vileplume up and going and attacking the Pyroar once again. And after he knocked this one out, I slapped. So yeah, after he knocked this one out, the Irritating Pollen, I slapped him with the Disgusting Pollen, hit the Sleep. And so I was like, oh gosh, I'd prefer Confusion, to be honest. Because then at least he has to flip the coin for the heads or tails, because I had nothing else, or I'm sorry, I had something else on the bench, but it was ready to attack in the Aggro. But he ended up slapping a counter gain on that Pyroar, and I absolutely did not expect that to play Pyroar, because I don't even think he had cards in his deck besides Steven's Resolve. He played Steven's Resolve similar to I did. But there was nothing like a Guzma Holler or anything like that that searched for tool cards, special energies, and stuff, because he played both of those and also Stadium. So that was really cool to see. Sadly, we tied. We just didn't have enough time. We both had 2 prizes left. I'm not sure who would have won the matchup. Neither of us were close to decking out. But I would say probably James would have won. I'm not 100% sure, though, because I know I had one more Cynthia and Caitlyn going to get things such as the Pokemon Center lady. I hadn't played Life Force yet, so that's even more healing than I could have done. But just being able to knock around the Regirocks with one shot on the Vileplume was actually really, really nice in that matchup. So overall in this League Cup, I did go 1-3-1. Obviously, that is not a record that you want to go to. This was my first expanded event of all time. A lot of people probably wouldn't even want to be able to put content like this on YouTube because it's such a bad record. But you know what? I learned through all of it. I think I learned a lot personally. But some of the things that I have for this deck, some critiques that I would do. I think that Pokemon Center lady and Life Force are really good pieces of this deck, especially of my local meta. I will credit JW for this, JW Criswell or Flex Daddy Righteous. I'll leave his information down below. Him and I were kind of talking a lot before the cup, not because he's in my local area, because I was DMing him on Twitter. I was having some trouble filling some spots, and so he said, what does your local meta look like? And I told him at the challenge the week before and the cup at my local place the day before that I couldn't go to, there was a lot of Guardian. So he said to jump the PCL lady in, because I was already playing Life Force, because he said the PCL lady does exactly 60, and that's exactly what Aromatisse does. So they use the Aromatisse to be able to hit the Burning Shadows Vileplume, so you're able to negate all of that damage that Guardian is able to do, so you just keep swiping at that Aromatisse. So even though I didn't face a Guardian in the cup that I personally went to, I still think it's very, very good, because Guardian is a very, very good expanded deck as of right now. We'll see after Dallas how good it actually is compared to some of the other decks in the meta, but I do think that Guardian is prevalent. I don't think it's a bad idea. It does work out for other things as well. It saved me a little bit more time in the Honchkrow stall matchup because I was able to heal off some of the damage that Pyroar did. 60 of the 90 damage. Wait, I'm sorry, 60 of the 120, and then with the Life Force, that can completely negate the whole thing. And plus, in my second time facing Archies, it could have actually changed the entire game there towards the end, because if I had chosen to heal, you know, that's one more energy that he has to find, which he probably couldn't have found because he had no way to get energies out of his discard. So that's a really interesting thing that I think should be in your deck personally, because Archies, Guardy, very, very prevalent. Another one that I want to say is Shuckle. Although I did use Shuckle in the Honchkrow matchup, I just used Shuckle in the Honchkrow matchup because I wasn't sure what to throw at it, and I started with the Shuckle. Personally, I would change this to a Vileplume GX. Vileplume GX to me was very, very prevalent. There were opportunities where, you know, I would have hit for weakness, but instead of using Downer Shock maybe once or twice, or I'm sorry, twice or 3 times depending on the Pokemon, you know, maybe I could sneak in with the Vileplume GX, the stage 2, and just hit something for 180. Or use my GX to use the status conditions as well. So I think that Vileplume GX would be a very good addition in spot of the Shuckle GX. Another change that I would make is I would move 4 Fabas to 3. I know that Faba is very, very good, but there were actually few instances in the cup that I actually needed to use Faba. I still know there are a lot of good places that you need to use Faba in certain matchups. So that's why I still suggest 3, because there are situations where you can grab them back via the Cynthia and Caitlyn, and I still feel like 3 Fabas is pretty good to grab off of a Pokegear. So I have no problem with doing that. There are a couple different cards that I'm thinking that you could add into this. One of them is Teammates. Teammates, after a Pokemon's knocked out, you're able to grab 2 cards. Doesn't matter what cards they are. And unlike Stevens, it does not end your turn. So I think Teammates could be a really cool addition. Some of the other things that I thought that I needed, obviously with my 2 donks that I got in the first 2 rounds, maybe I would be more leaned on towards getting more draw support. So even though it's not necessarily draw support, maybe N, maybe moving that to 2 because you want to try to have some sort of hand disruption, especially in late game. The N actually worked out really well in the Honchkrow stall matchup because he had built up all these cards through Steven's resolve that he was doing, but I negated that and put him back down to 2 or 3 or whatever it was at the time that I used it. Another thing you could do is something like Mars, Rosa, Skyla. Skyla could be really, really good because you can just grab a trainer. Steven grabs a supporter and an energy, which is really, really nice. But if you have Skyla, at least you're able to grab a trainer, which is literally any of these cards that you see right here. You know, you can grab the Bridget. If you really need to, you can grab the Lysander, the Power Plant, even a Life Force. You know, if you really want to grab a Pokegear, you can, but I highly advised against it because you can just grab a supporter. But yeah, a lot of different things that you can really do in this spot with taking out the 4th Faba and putting in something else. So again, the things that I would probably look at testing would be Teammates, N, Mars, Rosa, and Skyla. Mars, that's kind of a toss-up. I kind of like that because you throw something away. Maybe you throw something away and it's actually really important, like in a Mewtwo box you throw away one of their Pokemon. So maybe not, but I was just trying to brainstorm different draw supporters that you can use to get you to see just a couple more cards. And the last card that I really, really think that you all should be looking at, especially when playing this, is Lysander. I thought Lysander was a huge help I talked a couple of instances where I used Lysander in matchups because oftentimes, especially on PTCGO, I felt like there were a lot of times where I had this Vileplume, Downer Shock, Disgusting Pollen in the active, but I wanted to chase something on the bench and I had no way to retreat another Pokemon on the field. Maybe it was like Pidgeotto, but I didn't have any more energies to spare in my hand to be able to retreat the Pidgeotto. So I really liked Lysander. I think it's a really, really good addition. It's still good to have Guzma, so make sure you do have Guzma. But I think having this diversity of both of these supporters is actually really, really nice. So yeah, those are my big changes. Again, I went 1-3-1 in my first expanded event ever. This is the only deck that I can play. It's the only deck that I can afford. It was the cheapest for me to build. So hopefully here in the next couple weeks when I have another expanded event, I can do a little bit better than that. The next event that I will be going to is standard. So the next deck profile that I give out from one of my events is going to be standard. I'll test a little bit this week on it on PTCGO on stream, twitch.tv/atrociousgameplay. If you would like to watch, suggest decks, give us your deck ideas, and maybe even, I don't know, tell me that I didn't do so hot. Anyways, thank you guys again so much for watching. Quick shout outs to again Flex Daddy Righteous. He was helping me a lot trying to understand this deck and trying to get ready for the cup as well. Kyle, as always, for not only helping me get some cards, but then also, you know, taking me there and just having a friend, I guess. But yeah, thank you again. And I also want to say Evan, because he mentioned to me that the Pokemon fan club that I was using, it wasn't exactly this one. It was a different one. I'll show it on screen. But the fan club that I was planning on using is actually not good because it mentions the word baby Pokemon. So kids, if you don't learn anything from this video, make sure that you learn how to read. Anyways, that is all for me today. Thank you so much for watching Atrocious Gameplay. Remember, we are not very good at video games or card games or just really anything at all. But we have a fun time doing it. We get better every day. And you know what? We're working our way to the top at level 100. So thank you again so much for watching. Check out the next video. Check out the other thingamadoodaws. And see you later.